Hi, class. Here's chapter 5, interviewing. Now, what's the purpose of an interview? An interview is a way to fill gaps in information, and it's also a way for you to add a face to the facts in your story. And what do I mean by adding a face to the facts? I mean adding a personalized point of view. Or so a lot of times you're attributing information to someone so your readers can see, oh, yeah, there really is. I can see that this person really was hurt during this hurricane and why they might need some extra help and that I want to go help them. Or if there's like a house fire, then you want, but they find out that that it was started, that it was arson related, so somebody set the fire, then you would want that information from whoever your spokesperson is at the fire department. So you're adding a face to the facts, and it can also help you with your fact checking and gathering whenever you're writing. It's a great way to find out if maybe there's something more to the story than what you originally saw, especially when you have that face-to-face interaction. Often you'll notice someone maybe seems a little more uncomfortable when they're talking about a particular thing, or maybe they want to disclose more because they get to see you, and it's more having a conversation versus emailing or however else you're looking for the information. Now, there are lots of different types of interviews. You do these every day whenever you talk to your parents or an instructor, coworkers, or even when you're talking to clients and figuring out what they want. You, of course, are conducting an interview if you are interviewing someone for a job or if you're the person who is being interviewed. So think about how those kinds of interactions go. You're learning a little bit about them and they're learning a little bit about you. And that way you're both able to form stronger bonds and to maybe understand what's happening a little better. When you're preparing for an interview, first you want to check any written sources of information related to your topic. And when you're looking for a topic for your projects, of course, there are lots of different sources of information. Now, you can look at local, national, international news organizations, periodicals or journals, maybe go to the library and check out some of the books on a particular topic. And of course, local and national government websites, .gov.edu, they will often publish information related to something that's happening right now. You can also look on their social media and and a lot of times if there's something new happening, they'll release information about it there as well. Now, when you do use social media or internet searches, use caution. Make sure that you're backing up everything you find with credible sources. Again, even if you're using something like Wikipedia, or if you're doing a general Google search, or you see something pop up in one of your feeds, make sure that you follow the links and go back to the original source material or as close to it as you can. And check publication dates. I can't tell you how many times I've seen something that was published 2 or 3 years ago and someone was trying to republish it and say that it just happened. It's become a little more of an issue in recent years. However, that not only does it apply to that situation, but also when you're looking at updates. I mean, sometimes the older works just have better search engine optimization. So they'll, the article from 2016 will pop up, but the updated one from 2021 will not. So make sure there isn't a newer version of whatever information you're looking at. And of course, how recently it was published depends on the publication type. So if it's a journal, those are often published quarterly or sometimes only annually. Make sure that you have the most recent version, and also that you are looking at first or second level sources. Remember, those are the people who were eyewitnesses, or something written by an eyewitness, or a person who spoke to someone who was at the scene of an event, or spoke to someone who's directly related to it in some way. What is your story? Well, first, that's one of the first questions you should ask yourself. What's your story? And whenever you develop your outline, so we've gone through, we figured out our main topic, more or less. We did a little research, found a few recently published articles, decided on a focus based on those articles. Remember, when you're writing your focus, we want to answer those 5 W's and our H: who, what, when, where, why, and how. Also, what makes this story newsworthy? Is it because it's an odd situation? Was there conflict? Is it something that happened very recently? It should be somewhat recent, so make sure you're still looking at that. And also that it has some kind of impact on a particular group. This doesn't have to be local. It can be national or international. Just make sure if you're doing something on a broader scope that you're honing in on a specific area, that you aren't trying to cover too much. Otherwise, you'll get bogged down. And of course, your lead might change. So focus for now on your lead, but keep in mind you might have to rewrite it based on information from your interviews. So then you go and organize your information based on the importance to the lead. So like you did for your last project, you're looking at it saying, hey, how does this information relate to my lead? How does it support it? How does it, work together with what I've already said? And then once you've organized what you have, ask yourself, what's missing? And then you pick an interview source based on what's missing. Now, that what's missing could be a regular person's point of view. It could be a professional point of view. Those are both things that can work depending on the type of story you're writing. Now, finding an interview. Again, you're looking at what's missing. So ask yourself, what can this person add to my story? They should have some kind of meaningful involvement. Are they a first person? Do they have a first person account of something? Are they a scientist directly involved in a new study or a new field? Do they have some kind of personal connection with the subject? Are they do they have a relative maybe who is who regularly participates in the games of Acadiana? That would be another example. Or are they a leading authority on a particular subject? Maybe they are someone who works on whatever the new trend is in architecture. Or are they a person of interest? Are they a local famous person? Are they a nationally recognized leader in their field, or maybe a politician? So those are all more professional or first person account types of interviews. You could also look for a person on the street. That's a POS interview. And that's when you're looking for opinions related to your story. When you look for opinions, please make sure you're looking for someone who can actually add to your story. So someone who is knowledgeable about the topic, not someone who will say, oh man, I have no idea. I've never heard of that before, unless that's actually a part of your story that people don't know about whatever your topic is. But most of the time, you're writing a story about something that's happening and you need someone who at least has an idea about what's happening. Now, for your interview, you want to start by asking your interviewee to say and spell their first and last name. It sounds really basic, and you would obviously have this information if you're contacting them. However, you want to make sure, so this is where the double and triple checking comes in, that you have their name spelled correctly. It looks very unprofessional whenever you write someone's name incorrectly, or if you say their name incorrectly during a broadcast. And this will also help if any of you do work in a field where you need to hand off your information to someone else. A lot of times people working on stories are, it might be, 2 or 3 people who have to handle it. And 2 of those 3 people were not there for the interview. So you need to make sure that information is available. You also want to find the interviewee's title and the name of their business or event, if applicable, and make sure you have contact information in case you need to follow up. Almost always, you're going to need to follow up after your interview and ask them a couple of more questions, especially once you get into the writing phase, or even more so if you're giving your information to someone else for them to write the story. Now, what kind of questions should you ask? Well, of course, we're looking at things related to your main topic. So keep your topic in mind when you're writing your questions, and you want to emphasize the relationship between the topic and the interviewee in at least some of your questions. And you want to use a combination of open and close-ended questions. Well, what are those? Open-ended questions extend answers from your source. So that means we're looking at getting those longer explanations about something and possibly maybe more emotional context for whatever event. And you're trying to get something you will probably use as a direct quote from them related to the topic. It's possible to get those from close-ended questions, but most of the time you're trying to get them to talk about the experience or about whatever their project is or whatever your main subject is. You want them to explain it and fill in the gaps for you and maybe show you some areas you may not have considered as an outsider reviewing whatever this topic is. And close-ended questions gather specific information. They help you clarify or nail down facts. Like if someone was at home when a fire started. So that's usually if it's someone who was maybe at home, and like one example, there was someone who she was grabbing something in her laundry room and a spray paint can fell and right next to their gas water heater and exploded. Well, she was able to explain that not only for, the firefighters and other things, but also for the news and in addition to adding that information, explain how scared she was and getting in the process of getting herself and her family out of the house. Now, you also want to leave a little bit of silence. Sometimes I know it gets really uncomfortable when you're asking questions and you want to keep that dialogue flowing. Remember, we are looking more for them to answer your questions, not the other way around. So allow there to be a little breathing room. You can have a little silence during your interview. It shouldn't necessarily last forever, but just kind of count to yourself like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and allow a little space after a question if it's to make sure that they've stopped and given you everything that they want to give you. Whenever you're starting, start with a goal of at least 5 or 6 questions based on your research. Have a logical flow to your ideas, but allow for the possibility to change based on your source's answers. So look for ways to follow up questions and maybe rephrase their answers in the form of a question. See if maybe they said in the house fire example, if she said the spray paint can't fell, maybe say, oh, wow, the can fell. Was it right next to you? Or, kind of try to follow up on different things and, or see if like maybe they were trapped somewhere or what was going on. Whenever most of you are going to be doing more research-based stories. So kind of think about what information you have already. And again, see if there are some ways you could add to it that would improve your audience's knowledge about the topic. When you're wrapping things up, they've told you pretty much everything you think they would want to tell you. Ask if there are any other points you missed, or maybe review your notes from your meeting and see if there's something you underlined, or maybe circle back to a question that they didn't totally answer earlier and see if there are any more important points that they want to cover or that they can cover. If they can't cover something, if they can't answer your questions, ask for recommendations. Maybe they know some other people you should interview who would work better for your story and help it be more informative. Or maybe they know some other sources. Maybe they published something recently and they'll say like, hey, you can look at the results of this in this journal or whatever. So ask if they have recommendations. And of course, this depends on the type of interview you're doing. And ensure that that person speaks more than you. Your interviewee is answering your questions. You are not answering theirs. Which, not to say that you need to withhold anything. It's more that they are supposed to be answering your questions. When you record an interview, Louisiana is a one-party consent state. So one person needs to know about the recording. An example, if you and your friend are talking over lunch, you can record the conversation on your phone and not tell them, and it would technically not be against the law. However, when you're conducting interviews, you usually want to tell them, hey, I'm recording this. It's something that will help me later whenever I'm taking notes and writing, whenever I want to remember exactly what you said. And also this will help if you want to maybe not only write an article, but also include a short video, or if you're using it for a podcast, then you can actually have audio clips from your interview. So best idea, record the interview, either audio or video. And one caveat, of course, with the one-party consent is voyeurism. If you are recording, you are not supposed to record like people in changing rooms or that kind of thing. Where should you interview someone? You should go to your source. You want to be somewhere where they can be comfortable. And a lot of times this is going to be a home or an office, or maybe it's the site of whatever topic you guys are discussing. Like if you're talking about a new oil well, then you probably want to see if you can go out to the field and actually view it. Or if they are in their office, they're not only more willing to talk, they may also have some props available. Like if they have a model related to their project, like the little dioramas with maybe a new bridge that's being erected or something like that. Also, if you see a lot of times you'll see reporters at the scenes of breaking news. They usually will go on location if there's a crash, or maybe if there's like whenever the government opens some of the spillways, you'll see reporters out there at the scene covering it. And it's also something where usually the reporters will follow up in another location later. Now, video recording gives you the most options. You're getting audio and you're getting that photo evidence from your recording. And you can do those in person. You can also use Zoom or another video chat and record your video chat. So either of those work for video recordings. And of course, whenever you do the video recording, you're also getting audio, so you can follow up and listen to the audio later, make sure that your direct quote is actually following what they said and not something you think you remember them saying. And you also can conduct follow-up interviews through phone, email, and text. Phone is an okay one still if you want to, for your first interview. However, I would recommend, if you can't go in person, to conduct a video chat, not a phone call. Also, you can do follow-up interviews with email or text. These are good in the sense that you have a transcript, however, and you can get any links to photos or maybe videos that they have online. However, they can be extremely limiting and often confusing, especially whenever you're conducting this kind of interview where you're supposed to be asking questions based on the information, not only that you've gathered, but also what they're giving you at the time of the interview. Now you've done your pre-interview research, you put together an outline, you wrote some questions, you conducted the interview, you have your interview recording, and you also have your outline, you have a couple of new sources you're going to use. So you're ready to write your article. Where do you start? Start from your outline. Is your lead still the lead? Did you get some new information that you need to use as the main part of your story now? Do you need to maybe replace some of your sources? Were some of them not as good as you thought they were, and you found some more? Or do you need to add more information? You should, because you're adding things from your interview, but if you need to include any additional written sources as well. See if there's any relevant additional information. So again, we're looking at what clarifies facts, if something better answers our W's and H. And of course, you want to look for compelling direct quotes. That should be something you keep kind of in the back of your mind as you're conducting your interview. And also paraphrase different chunks of information. See if maybe there's a particular subject they address, but they just take way too long to talk about it. Whenever you paraphrase information, you are not directly quoting something. If you use one or two words that are the same, that's okay. But basically, you're usually paraphrasing because you want to take a large piece of information and cut it down to a more understandable little chunk. Now, this is how you attribute facts and statements to different people. In this example, it says the novel coronavirus vaccination appointments open to Louisiana K-12 educators and school support staff on Monday, and public and private school leaders in Lafayette are working to help interested educators get access to doses. So this is the beginning. Then Governor John Bel Edwards announced Thursday. So he is announcing that these vaccinations are available, that teachers and support staff at state K-12 schools and daycares would be eligible for COVID-19 vaccines. The author starts with the newest information about it, which this is something that's coming up on Monday, but the governor made his announcement on Thursday, attributing the information to his declaration. Now let's review specifically your interview writing project. I'm going to go over parts A through C. And the reason I have it broken down is to make it easier for you to see how the process works and help you better understand what's going on. So part A is due Sunday, February 13th. You are looking for someone to interview about a current event in your major or in the news. So it can be a new discovery in your field, or maybe a big thing that's been a topic in your major related classes for a while. If there's something in the news, maybe that you find interesting, you can use that as well. And you want to have either an instructor or working professional or a student with a relevant point of view as your interviewee. And you're going to write questions based on your outside sources and research. You need to have at least two sources. Same thing with the interview. I'm only looking for one. If you want to include more than one, that's awesome. Please feel free to include as many as you think are necessary. Usually, though, more than two or three would be a little excessive. So you're only required to have one, but if you want to have more than one, you are welcome to have more than one interview. You need at least two sources. And again, if you want to have more than two sources, you may, but I need to see that you have at least two sources. Now, you also are going to conduct your in-person or Zoom interview. So record your interview, post it on Vimeo or YouTube, include the link in the information you turn in to me, which will be any notes about important topics you covered in your interview. So if you have a timestamp next to it to help you find this information later, let's say it's about a direct quote, it would be at 5 minutes, 15 seconds. And here are some tips for asking questions as well, help you a little more in your interview process. And the writing portion, finally, you are reviewing your notes and recordings. Write 2 or 3 paragraphs using the information from your interview and your other sources, and include at least one direct quote. Now, when I say a direct quote, if you look in your book, and look in the examples I included, you'll see a direct quote means a full thought, not just 2 or 3 words in quotations. So make sure you have that full thought in there. And when you're picking a direct quote, of course, you're looking for something compelling, anything that coming from your expert or from your eyewitness or whoever you interviewed, that it will add to your story and help to increase that human element and help your audience connect with the material. And of course, you do have AP Quiz 2 due, as well as your Chapter 8 quiz. And like I said, the writing project, the first part of your interview is due on Sunday, February 13th. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you later.